we have what we call starving agents. So just like you have like starving artists, we have starving agents too. It's really easy to pick up on, especially over here, because if you feel like an agent is being a little bit too pushy, like buy this, if everything is a good investment that you're looking at, everything, like there's nothing that's not in the right area, everything is a good investment, then that agent is probably not operating with high integrity.
Hi, guys. It's Barika from Simply Unique Coaching, and I'm here with Brianna. And I want her to talk to us a bit about her background and her experience. She has worked in the military before, and then she also is here in the Dominican Republic, working in the area of real estate. So, we're going to talk about her journey. And what I like to do in these interviews is I like to help people who are like newer with understanding what they need to have as far as professional skills or just certain mindsets that really, really great employees and bosses and whatnot have when they are approaching work, because I think that that's a lost art. And I think that that's something that some people who really want to be successful in the future, they need to know. So that's kind of where the conversations are going. And so, Brianna, can you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your background, and then we'll talk a little bit afterwards about your military experience.
Yes, definitely. So, hi, everybody. My name is Brianna Darby. As she mentioned, I was in the military. I did 7 years, 4 active, 3 reserve. I was in the Army. After that, I transitioned into real estate, and then I've done small businesses here and there, but I've been in real estate almost 10 years. I started in California, and I brought my expertise over here to the Dominican Republic, where I opened a brokerage, and that's what I do over here now.
Awesome. And so, let me first ask you, how long have you been in the Dominican Republic?
So I was going back and forth for about, I'll say, a year and a half or so. I had my place over here, and I was just trying to be in two places at one time. And then I decided to stay here permanently about 6 months ago.
And when it comes to the military, I think that that's something that people don't take lightly because, like at some point in time, your life can be at risk. So, what made you kind of go into the military? I'll ask you in a little bit, like some of the lessons you learned as far as working in the military and being a part of the military staff, because I think that there are some skill sets that can be acquired in working in that type of environment, right? So, yeah, how did you get in the military? And then what were some of the things that you learned that you carry with you to this day from that?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I wish I had like a heroic story about how I got in and why I got in, but I have to be honest with you. So when I was considering joining the military, it wasn't really a decision that I really wanted to do because I know it would drive my parents crazy, especially my dad. I'm his only child. So I was actually dating a guy, and he could not pass the test. He could not pass the ASVAB. So I'm like, man, that test must be super hard. So I'm like, let me go try to do it myself and see how hard this test is. So I went past it with flying colors, and at that time I hadn't made up my mind like I actually really want to go. I just wanted to see how hard the test really was. But from there, the recruiters are calling. Then I started looking into different opportunities, and I was in college at the time, so I'm like, okay, I can take what I learned in college, take it to the military. They can help me pay for my college. It'll get me out of my hometown because I'm born and raised in Columbia, South Carolina, and a lot of people don't leave the small town. So I started looking at it as an opportunity to leave where I was because no one ever left. Try different things, try different job opportunities, and I decided that I did want to see what it was about. So I initially was thinking of Air Force. The recruiter was never in the office, but right next door to the Air Force recruiter was the Army, and they're like, "Girl, we will take you tomorrow. Let's go." So I ended up joining the Army. They took me fast. They got me right out of home. I didn't have time to change my mind.
That's a wonderful story, and thank you for sharing that. And it's interesting because when I was in high school, I was in ROTC. I didn't know what ROTC was. It just was added to my schedule as an elective. And one of the things that became a benefit for me was that I realized that I could have them pay for me to go to college. So you have to just, at that point in time, you only had to be in the program for 3 to 4 years. And I went through it for 3 years. And then through a series of events, I decided not to do the fourth year. But my plan was to go into the Air Force because yeah, there was some reason. I guess I'll be honest. I was like, yes, I want to go into the Air Force, and I don't want to die. Basically, I want to push some papers around. And if you're in the military or in the Air Force, I'm not trying to insult you. This is where my mind was as a teenager at the time. So please don't take it like anything wrong. But I was like, listen, I And then because I had the ROTC experience, I would have gone in as an officer. So they would have paid for college, and I would have gone in as an officer coming out of college. And at least if I went directly into the Air Force, which my goal was to go to college. If I didn't go to college, which was never even an option for me, I would have gone in with the higher rank because I had that ROTC experience. So, but my plan was to go in and to stay in for a couple of years because officers, get housing and they get more pay and stuff like that. So that was my plan. But I got a scholarship. I got a couple of scholarships, so I didn't have to do that. One of my good friends, she ended up eventually going in. That was our plan, kind of going out of high school. And then years later, we went into different sectors, but eventually she actually did go to the Air Force. So that's awesome. And being in the Army, what was your role?
So I was in logistics. So we call that 92 Alpha. Any 92 series is logistics. So I did that, and it's like supply. So we supported locally and overseas. So we had everything from paper clips to Humvees. So anything that was needed in the military, everybody wanted to be our friends because we had it all.
Absolutely. Now, on the smaller scale with the ROTC, now I'm thinking about when it came time for them to hand out uniforms and stuff like that. You wanted to be friends with the supply officer in our ROTC program because you were going to get the best uniform, best shoes, the best different, best uniform quality and everything. Yeah. So I get that. Yes. You want to know people who are in the know. So then, like, from the military, what would you say are some of the lessons that you learned? What was the most surprising thing to you, first of all? And then what were some of the lessons you learned?
So being from South Carolina, the area that I was in, there weren't a lot of people that looked different. Like there was a lot of us. Like we all kind of looked the same. So initially going into the military, and I'm so grateful for this. I can't thank the military enough. Was introducing us to different cultures because there are people from everywhere. There's people from Asia, um, Africa. Let's see, just everywhere. There's just people from everywhere. So actually being in a place where we're learning about different cultures through people and people are learning about us is different. So I had a friend, she was from a small town. She never seen like she really never she's never seen black people before. So being in there,
Mhm.
it helped her.
Oh,
She had a bias, it wasn't her fault. She just hadn't seen us before.
yeah.
So she had a bias that, she grew up
Mhm.
with thinking one way. So when she was introduced to us, we taught her about us and she ended up having a mixed baby. So you just learn so much about different things. So that I really love that. Not only that, but just the discipline was very good. I was always a good kid. I didn't have problems in there. But just learning how to be more organized, that's something that really helped me in business, operating with very high integrity. So it's little things that we don't think about that, our morals and values, we want to keep them in a certain place. So operating with high integrity helped me so much in business, especially, being a business owner here in the Dominican Republic where certain standards and values are not upheld as they should be. But that's something that I always revert back to that I learned in the military. So that was a very great lesson. And there's so many things that I learned in the military that I'm grateful for, but those are some things that stand out.
So I'm going to ask you, and you hit something right there. So we're gonna put a pin and come right back to that last part that you mentioned about integrity, and then even in transitioning to another place where it can be a little bit more fluid than than one would think. But what I want to ask you first is, were you ever stationed overseas at all while you were in the military, or were you in the U.S. the whole time?
I was in the US the whole time. So actually, interesting enough, when I finished that one duty station and left, as soon as I left, they got orders to go to Afghanistan. So I literally just missed it.
Oh. Yeah. Well, it depends on which stage of going to Afghanistan because when I was living in the Middle East, I met some really great people from all over the world and Afghanis and not. And I just know that there's some stuff going on in the country, so it just depends on like what time you would have gotten sent there and been able to get sent back as to what would have been happening at the time. So everything happens for a reason, I believe, though. Everything happens for a reason. What I want to ask you about now is how has the transition been for you? So, yes, right now we're in the Dominican Republic and there are a ton of amazing people here. Let me say that. There are a ton of amazing people here. My mom is actually from a Caribbean island. So I grew up with the Caribbean life. I lived part of my life in the US and part of my life in the Caribbean. And so I have an appreciation for Caribbean culture. I grew up in South Florida, so I definitely have a appreciation for people from different countries. It really made me diverse and well-rounded, and being used to being places where I don't know what anybody's saying. And so when I moved to the Middle East, I was like, oh, it's just like being back home. It's like I walk down the street, I might hear somebody speaking Tagalog, I might hear somebody speaking Hindi, I might hear somebody speaking Arabic, and so or English. It's just a normal day, that kind of thing. So, but one of the things that I can say I have noticed here, and I'm sure Brianna, because she kind of alluded to it, is that sometimes you'll encounter people where the standard of business is not necessarily where we would hope it would be. And so when you come from a place where certain things are uh, a little bit more organized sometimes, where things are a little bit more upfront ethical, and where people have severe punishments or they know that there are repercussions to doing things unethically, it can make certain things a little bit of a challenge. Like, just for example, one of the things that I have since learned since being in the DR, you definitely want to deal with somebody reputable when it comes to real estate, because someone from your next door neighbor can decide that they're a real estate agent at 5 o'clock today and never sell any real estate, never have done any deals, but they're a real estate agent because they think, anyway, let me just hush. All right, Brianna. Brianna. So how has that been with you wanting to do things ethically and out of integrity? How are you able to maintain that in an environment where sometimes things can be a little bit more fluid? Where are you from?
Yeah, I think one of the main things that we just have to remember is we just always want to do right by people no matter what. So even before the military, I've always operated with very high integrity, and I never want anybody to treat me any kind of way or put me in a financial situation. And I'm one of the few agents, especially here, that I'm gonna give you the good, the bad, the ugly, what could happen, the best case scenario. I'm gonna give you the whole picture. Now I do run into some of my colleagues that are not like that, and I don't work with everybody. So I don't work with every developer. I can't work with every agent. I can't even work with every client. There's some clients that I'm not gonna mesh well with. So you have to really choose your people and protect your energy and your space. And I know if I'm doing right by people, people will still come. So I never operated out of, oh, I got to make this money. I need to make this amount. Yes, I set goals, but if I don't meet the goals, I'm not pressed about it. Cuz there where I don't make, I can make it another way, or people are going to refer me, and I built a very good referral business just because of that. So, when I see people that are not operating ethically, I won't work with them. And that goes for all around. So I know when you're going in real estate training, they're like, you got to make this amount, you got to do this, you got to do this. I am not stressing. I am not stressing. So I know the business will come. I don't need to try to convince anybody to buy something that's not a good investment for them. Everybody's in a different place. I'm never going to push a place when I know somebody tells me they need something, because you never know what type of position you could be putting someone else in. So I'm not going to feel good at the end of the day if I sell you a certain home, but I know it's not what you wanted or not in the location. It's not going to do what you telling me you need it to do, but I'm gonna sell it to you anyway just to make that quick money. No, I'm not like that. So I think when it comes to operating in a place where integrity is not so high, you just have to remember who you are and what you want people to know you for. Do you want people to know you as a person that's just getting all the deals? Yeah, you look good on social media, you're getting 100 deals, but you're not operating ethically and people are not going to come back to you? Or do you want to be the person that's operating ethically, still getting a good amount of deals, and people can say good things about you? I want to be that girl that, they always say good things about.
I love that, and that just makes my heart smile, because the way that Brianna and I met one day is I was at a coffee shop slash restaurant, and then she was at the coffee shop and restaurant, and we just struck up a conversation, and I just felt like I was like, okay, I have a feeling I need to interview her and to get to spend some time to know her better. And so I love that you shared that, because that is so important. Because when we do things the right way, as you mentioned, there's always going to be referrals, and our reputation matters. and building that up. So that's going to be one of the key caveats from this discussion. If you walk away with nothing else, and then this is to the audience, like make sure that you operate out of integrity. You do the right thing. Do the right thing even when no one's looking. If you do the wrong thing, admit to it. Don't let it be discovered. Because if you wait for it to be discovered, then it puts a question mark on every other action you have had before then. At least if you are integritous enough, I think that's a word. It's going to be a word today. If you're integritous enough, then you'll admit to wrongdoing before you get discovered. You know, like because everyone's not perfect, but we try to be in excellence and in integrity. We try to be as perfect as possible. And then, you know, just let's say you told a lie accidentally, or or you even intentionally, maybe you were scared, but like own it and say, hey, you know what, I said this wasn't true. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to da da da. Because then that marks you as more of a person who is more of a person who operates with integrity, right? So I think that that's so important that you brought that up. And one of the things that I tell anybody who works with me and anybody who has ever been on my team, I'm like, listen, tell me the truth. I was like, we can work through the truth. We can always work through the truth. We might have to figure some things out, but we can work through the truth. I was like, but don't lie to me. Because if I find that you lie to me, then like now you're on my radar. So everything you say to me from that point on until you build up enough credibility again is going to have a question mark on it, right? And the worst thing that somebody who was on my team or working for me can do is get a reputation for being a liar. They're not going to be there long. I'm not going to, I always said in Arabic, we say, Walla. We'd be like, I promise, I swear. Like, Walla, you will not be there long. I promise. And so for those of you who don't know, I actually am a leadership coach. I've been leading for over 15 years. I've led more than 18 teams. Like, I've led for, should I say, on this broadcast, I said, I've been paid for leading since 1997. Okay. So, all right. So I've been paid to lead people from 1997, and I've done it in a volunteer state and all of that. So what I share about leadership is stuff that I know because I have done it over and over and over again. I've built high performing teams over and over again. I can build it. I can build a team from scratch. I can rebuild a team that's dysfunctional. I know how to do it because I've done it, and I currently help people do it now. Right. And so, but the integrity is important. And I'll say this from the leadership perspective, because if you don't have integrity, your team can't trust you. And if your team can't trust you, it's going to be dysfunctional. Period. 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 Okay. I'll get off my soapbox with that. So, Brianna, what would you, I'll just get into teaching and coaching mode. And I'm like, listen, get it together. Because these are the conversations I think people need to have that they're not hearing. Because especially on social media, people pretend a lot. They pretend a lot. And so you have to hear things some people need to actually hear. You have to operate with integrity because they see so many people as, oh, I can't use that analogy because it doesn't relate to this particular industry. But you see people being so fake, or as they say, cap, you know, on YouTube and Instagram, and they're faking it like they got stuff that they don't have, or they're doing stuff. And I get it when you're building. I get you have to do what you have to do to an extent, but you still need to do it with integrity. So let's talk about that. Brianna, as you're building your business and you're doing it with integrity, how is it making you different? Because I know that there's a difference between you versus the new person, maybe who will do it the other route. And you kind of alluded to it earlier of, hey, let me just make the $100,000. It doesn't matter who I had to step on to do it, you know. How would you say that you are different from that version of a realtor or real estate individual? Because also people need to know what to look for. So I think that will help the audience too. It's like when they're looking at real estate agents, how do they know this is a person that has integrity? Because this is, man, when you're talking about hundreds, thousands, millions of dollars, you want to know who you're dealing with. You want to know who you're dealing with.
Well, we have what we call starving agents. So just like you have like starving artists, we have starving agents too. So it's really easy to pick up on, especially over here, because if you feel like an agent is being a little bit too pushy, like buy this, this is a good, if everything is a good investment that you're looking at, everything, like there's nothing that's not in the right area, everything is a good investment, then that agent is probably not operating with high integrity because they know the property that is about 45 minutes away from the beach probably is not going to do as well as far as short-term rental if that's what you're looking for as the one that's closer to the beach. So if they're saying everything is a good investment or you feel like they're being a little bit too pushy, the integrity is probably not as high. Not only that, if they're not over here, if they're not encouraging you to work with a lawyer, definitely that's a red flag. Um, and then a couple other things, if they're not taking time to listen to what you want, they're just kind of sending you properties or they're sending you stuff over your budget. If you set that, your budget is your budget. If someone sends me something, I'm giving you exactly what you want until you tell me that you want something else. And usually how that works is my clients will tell me, I want this, 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 and this, because I like to get real specific. So they send me that and I send them what they send me. And I don't deter from that until they send me something outside of that. And I'm like, you said you wanted this, this, and you sent me your house with this. Do you want to change? Like, do we need to change? But if you have an agent that's just sending you things that's not what you asked for, well over budget, things like that, then you may want to question that. But those are just some red flags to look out for.
Some people may be outside of the Dominican Republic that may be interested in purchasing real estate. So for that, what would you say are like best practices? Because I know you also had a real estate license, I believe, in California. Is that correct?
Yes.
What would you say, even in the US, if someone is looking for real estate, what are some best practices as far as them being the customer? What should they be looking for in an agent, or even something that you see maybe as a trend in the industry?
Yeah, so I'll say interview different agents. And I love working with my clients, but I feel like clients should interview with different agents, see who you feel like is going to be a good match, especially when you're doing real estate here. In the US, we can be a little more trusting because we have organizations that protect the consumer and things like that. We don't have that over here. So I would say interview different agents, see who you feel comfortable with, and work with that agent. Because what a lot of people do too is they'll find an agent, they'll find a couple agents, they'll come here, they're like, I'm gonna look with everybody until I find what I want. Well, that's great, but for one, everybody can't get paid when you buy something. So you have a lot of people working for you that may not get paid at the end. But if you have someone that you trust, you're not gonna need those other agents because you already have connected with somebody that you trust. So you're not gonna need 5, 6, 7 agents working for you when you come here. You're gonna have that one that's gonna work really hard for you and get the job done. But if you haven't found that one before you come, interview with different people, see who you feel comfortable with, see the type of things that they're sending you, have a consultation. Have a consultation. That's very, very important before you even think about the process or because you can't, there's no way to find everything you need to know on Google. You really need that consultation is very important. So have a consultation and then see who you fit with, and then work with that person. And then if you feel like at that time it's not a good fit, maybe when you get together because it's not what you thought it would be, then look at different agents. But you want to be with somebody who you feel like is being very honest with you, especially buying outside of your country. Because when you're coming over here, most people are only here for a certain amount of time. So the buying process over here is very different. There are a lot of scams. You want to be careful with that. You're putting a lot of more money down than you would in the U.S. in terms of deposit, and you want to make sure that your money is protected and your investment is protected.
And I think that that's great that you mentioned having interviewing the realtors, because like there's always that gut feeling you kind of get is like if something is gonna work, that, like I would say, trust that gut feeling when you're interviewing them. If you're like, okay, this person seems like we get along well. And you made a very good point. We always want to also be good stewards. We don't want to waste a ton of people's time, because if you have like 5 different agents, only one of them is going to make a sale. And in that, then it's 4 other people who wasted time, trying to get proper. Well, you wasted their time and they're not going to get money, because a lot of realtors work on commission. So it's like 4 other people didn't get paid and they could have been working with other clientele. So I like the idea of interviewing them. And if you figure out that the person you're working with isn't a good fit, then just find another one, right? Um, but I think that that's great that you recommended having the good lawyers, because having those contracts really well. And if you're English speaking only, just also make sure that the lawyer is able to put the contracts in English, get them translated in English. And even with something as big as a house, I would even take that contract and probably send it to 2 different translators, just me, make sure that everything comes back the same. Like make sure all the numbers line up and the percentages line up, just because it's such a big investment. But I do want to thank you for being here today, Brianna. Is there anything else you want to add? Also, how can people get in contact with you if they're interested in purchasing or finding out more about purchasing real estate in the Dominican Republic, how can they get in contact with you?
Oh yeah, definitely. So my name is Brianna Darby on all social media. So I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. You can find me there. And my email is admin@kanafmanagement.com.do. Kanaf is spelled Kanaf. And then if you want to WhatsApp me, it's 424-285-3630.
Awesome, awesome. And so I am so excited to have her here today because I I just got a good feeling, and I'm a pretty good judge of character. Like I can not always, but I can pretty. I don't know. I get that feeling on the inside, like, okay, this is a good person. So I got that when I met her, and she was just so sweet and had her daughter with her, and I was like, oh, And I just look forward to getting to know her better and living in the DR, and also potentially, looking at doing some things maybe in the future. But thank you, Brianna, for coming on today. It's such a pleasure to have you on. And thank you for talking about integrity. That's a really big part. All right, with that being said, make it a great day, guys. Take care.
Bye. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.